Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhigyaswarat Tene brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayah Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha Dhamna svena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi Nigamakalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad amritadrava sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. We now enter the 10th chapter of the 8th Skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam. We saw the whole episode of the churning of the ocean of milk and how after the nectar came out, the demons wanted to run away with it, but the Lord appeared as Mohini, the female form that bewilders everyone, and because of that, the demons completely got infatuated, and thereby Mohini distributed the nectar only to the Devas. Now we enter the next chapter where Shukabrahma Rishi continues. So, in this way, the demons could not obtain any nectar whatsoever simply because they had turned their back on the Supreme Lord. So, there's a nice verse here. It says, Iti Danava Daitaya Na Vindan Amritam Nripa Yuktah Karmani Yatascha Vasudeva Parang Mukhaha. So those who turn their back to Vasudeva, the Supreme Lord, they do not get the nectar. That's the whole symbolism behind this. The demons represent the thoughts which turn away from the Lord and which want to simply enjoy the world, gratify the senses, and engage in being separate. As we saw in the last chapter, Shukabrahma Rishi neatly described the difference between acting out of a sense of separation, which is the demoniac tendency, and acting out of a sense of interconnectedness, seeing the whole universe as a single tree, like interconnected completely. And that's the difference between the demoniac and divine way of action. And because the demons were engaged in separativeness and in greed, and they turned their back to the Supreme Being, he says, Vasudeva Paramukhaha, they turned their back on Lord Vasudeva, and therefore they did not obtain any nectar. And the Supreme Lord, meanwhile, after having enacted this wonderful pastime, he boarded the Garuda and he left the place. Now, after that happens, the demons are completely envious now. They see that the nectar has been completely consumed by the Devas, and they were basically left with nothing, even though they had taken part in the whole work. And therefore, they got very angry and they decided to attack the Devas. And meanwhile, the Devas, who, as we may remember, before the whole story of the churning of the milk, they were weakened completely because of the curse by Durvasa, and they were completely beaten down. And after this episode, now that they have drunk the nectar by the grace of Lord Narayana, it says that they were completely strengthened now. They were able to engage. So they are called as Narayana Padashrayaha. The Suraganaha, the Devatas, the demigods, they are being surrendered to the feet of Narayana. They were completely reinvigorated because they had the nectar. So it is said that on that seashore right there, a most dreadful and hair-raising battle ensued between the demigods and the demons. So here again, all of this is nicely symbolic too, that once the Supreme Lord left the place, immediately the battle ensues between the two. So, this is very symbolic of saying that even if we engage in meditation and we feel the presence of the Lord and then we turn away from it, then again the old tendencies come forth, and because of that, the battle between good and evil takes forth, and the struggle within, all of that takes forth. So one has to constantly invoke the presence of the Supreme Being within every single moment. The moment we lose that remembrance, lose that abidance, the old vasanas, the old tendencies take over. That is neatly symbolized here, that the Lord left this place after the nectar was given, and instantly the battle broke out. So there is no peace between the two warring factions, the Devatas and the demons, which is the same as the good and bad thoughts, as long as they don't take shelter in the Supreme Lord. So the battle symbolizes the battle within, and this battle is described by Shuka Brahma Rishi with great flair. So he reveals the poet in him and also brings out the rasa of warfare. Bhagavatam being a complete Purana, every rasa, every taste is there. In this episode, the taste of warfare comes out. So Shuka Brahma Rishi describes this great war that ensues between the Devatas and the demons. So they attack each other, it is said. They have all kinds of weapons with them, swords and arrows and all the weapons, and they are blowing their conches and clarionets. They are sounding their tom toms, their drums, and the elephants are all trumpeting, the horses are neighing, the chariots are all made sound, the foot soldiers are all roaring. So there is a great sound made by both sides, and instantly all the charioteers fight with charioteers, the horses engage with horses, the elephants with elephants, and people are all on different vehicles. The Devas and the Daityas, they are on the back of elephants, horses, camels, bears, panthers, lions, and birds like vultures and hawks. And some go into the sea and they are riding the whales and other sea animals. And there is all kinds of animals being engaged as vehicles. And on the ground, it is described very poetically how the various colors are all giving a beautiful vision. The white color of the umbrella, the diamond that is coating the umbrellas, the peacock feathers that fly on top of the umbrellas, the tail, the turbans that are worn by the devas and the daityas, the various pieces of cloth that are shining as their upper garment and waving in the wind. So, all of this is creating a beautiful rainbow of colors on that seashore, and both the armies are engaging with each other. It is said like two monster armies on the seashore, and on the one side is Bali, the head of the demons. He is the commander in chief. He is riding his famous vehicle called Vaihayasa, and it is a very magical car designed by the demon Maya. So Maya is the architect for the demons who designs most wonderful things with conjuring tricks. We already saw how Maya designed three cities, Tripura. In the seventh Skandha, we saw how he designed three cities for the demons made of gold, silver, and steel, which are flying cities. And Shiva burned them down, and that's why Shiva is called as Tripurari. Three cities is Tripura, and Tripurari means the one who burned down the three cities. That's a title for Shiva. So the same Maya who built those three cities, he has built this beautiful vehicle for Bali, and this vehicle can fly, it can hide itself, it can reveal itself, it can move swiftly, it cannot be located, it is suddenly perceived and suddenly it is not perceived. It has all kinds of mystical powers, and with this, it is said that Bali is appearing like the moon on the eastern hill, shining, and along with him there are all the various demons. Many demons' names are listed like Bana, Ilvala, Shumba, Nishumba, Maya himself, Paulomas, and so on. And none of them have received any of the nectar. They were all there. They were all baffled by Mohini and therefore did not get any nectar. And therefore, they all feel very angry that they suffered so much. They worked so hard to get the nectar in the process of churning, but they did not even get a drop. And therefore, they were so angry and they were blowing their conches and they were fighting vigorously. On the other side, it is said Indra, the head of the Devas, is heading the whole army of Devas, and he is mounted on Airavata, the elephant, the white, beautiful elephant, and he is shining like the sun on the eastern side. On his side are all the Devatas like Vayu, Agni, Varuna, and so on, and they are all rushing towards each other, fighting in pairs. And mention is made of Guha. Guha is the son of Lord Shiva, who is called as Skandha. He is called as the commander-in-chief of the Devas. So in Bhagavad Gita too, Krishna says when he describes the various vibhutis, the various opulences, and so on, he says, just as I'm Banyan among trees, I'm Kapila among sages, I'm Arjuna among Pandavas, and so on. Krishna says, I am Skandha among the commanders. Senanina Maham Skandha. So Skandha is the commander for the Deva. So he is there, and all the various Devatas are all engaging. There is a hand to hand combat and weapon to weapon combat, and even the gurus on both sides. It is said Brihaspati, who is the guru for the Devas, and Shukracharya, who is the guru for the demons. They are also engaged in a battle. The Maruts are engaged, the Vasus are engaged, all the various divine beings and the demoniac beings are engaged in this battle, and they're all fighting in pairs using various weapons. And the various weapons are also described like swords and iron clubs and sharp arrows, discuses, maces, lances, spears, axes, bludgeons. So we can see how Shuka Brahma Rishi, when he describes anything, he goes into such extensive detail, thereby bringing out the rasa, the taste of every event. In this particular episode, we get the taste of warfare, and it is described in such great detail, more than any modern movie can do, with all the fanfare of the sound and the fury and the weaponry and the arrangements. All of this is described. So he gives all the weapons that were there, state of the art weapons of the time, and with elephants and horses and car warriors and all of them engaging. And then there is a gory scene coming forth. This is again described to show the futility of warfare in general. Unfortunately, this war between good and evil here, the war between Devas and Daityas, this war is enacted both internally and externally again and again and again because of not surrendering to the Supreme Lord. And we see that even today, literally happening. This history repeats itself, and every time there is warfare, there is always gory violence. And that's why Shuka Brahma Rishi describes that animals were cut to pieces, and people had their arms cut off, thighs cut off, feet chopped off, their ornaments were torn, many of them were pulled out of their chariot and their heads were removed from their trunk. There was a cloud of dust that covered the whole place, and there was spouts of blood everywhere, and there was all kinds of various heads with ornaments and with earrings lying separately from the body. So it's a very gory scene which one can imagine. That's why warfare is not pretty, and warfare is very gory, and this is what happens in a war. And therefore the sign of true wisdom is to not engage in war, but to recognize the inner peace and thereby bring forth outer peace. But sometimes such war becomes inevitable, because in this case, as we see, the demons are the ones who start the war, and we see that even outwardly, even on this current times, many times there are instances where war becomes inevitable and it results in a lot of destruction for everyone. So it is said that Bali directly attacks Indra. There is a war going on between them. And Bali, whatever weapon he brings out, Indra is able to neutralize it. And then the demons headed by Bali, now they resort to conjuring tricks, because the demons are very good at conjuring tricks. They bring forth a mountain suddenly into view. It's a mountain made of Maya illusion, but it seems real. And this mountain seems to throw out forest fire and rocks and serpents and scorpions, and all kinds of things are spewing out of this mountain. And then not only that, they see that suddenly there is an ocean breaking all barrier and coming towards them. All of this is just a conjuring trick. The demons are very good at it, and they engage in such warfare. And because of this, the Devas are not sure what to do, because they are completely bewildered by these tricks. And then it is said that the Devas invoke the Supreme Lord. So again, here we see how the Devas too, which again represent the good thoughts. Instead of surrendering to the Lord and invoking Him, they were fighting the demons. And as they fought, we can see only the demons are gaining more power. And finally, it got to a point where the demons, with their conjuring tricks, started to get an upper hand and bewilder the Devas. And only then the Devas surrendered to the Supreme Lord. They recognized that they cannot do this, and therefore they surrendered to him. It is said, Na tat pratividhim yatra vidur indradayo nripa dhyatah pradur abhu tatra bhagavan vishwabhavanah. As soon as they remembered Bhagavan, Bhagavan appeared there. He manifested there in his glorious transcendental form with yellow robes and with his paraphernalia such as mace and lotus flower and conch and discus, mounted on Garuda with the Kaustubha gem, and he gave this his glorious vision. And as soon as he enters the battlefield, it is said the entire conjuring trick is broken, completely dismantled, just as a dream is broken when one wakes up. Shuka Brahma Rishi says, Tasmin pravishte asura kuta karmaja maya vineshur mahina mahiyasah swapno yatahi pratibodha agate harismriti sarva vipaddi mokshanam. So this is the essence of the whole thing, is that once we invoke Bhagavan, then the Maya, the conjuring trick of the evil tendencies, are instantly removed. So that's what is symbolized by this beautiful incident. The Devas, representing the good thoughts, they were fighting the evil thoughts, fighting very hard using all their weapons, and they could not overpower. In fact, the demons were overpowering. Their Maya was so powerful. But finally, when the Devas surrender to the Supreme Lord and he enters, instantly, Shuka Brahma Rishi says, just as a dream is instantly removed when one wakes up, similarly, their entire Maya, their conjuring tricks were instantly removed when the Lord entered. So this is the true symbolism too that this battle represents, is that instead of fighting with evil thoughts, if one simply surrenders to the Supreme Lord and invokes His presence, then the Maya cast by the evil thoughts are instantly removed, just as darkness goes with sun, or just as dream goes away with waking up. So once the Lord enters the battlefield, immediately he is getting rid of all the evil forces with his discus, and the Supreme Being Sri Hari, whose presence is there in the battlefield, ensures that all the demons are vanquished. Therefore, with the arrival of the Supreme Being, with the manifestation of Sri Hari, the Devas are empowered completely and they turn a corner. With this chapter ends. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.